boy till his nuggets were gone. A green traffic light turned straight to red. I hit my brakes and mumbled under my breath. His fries went a-flying and his orange drink covered his lap. Well, in my 4-year-old said a 4-letter word. It started with S, and I was concerned. So I said, son, now where'd you learn to talk like that? He said, I've been watching you, Dad, ain't that cool? I'm your buckaroo, I wanna be like you and eat all my food and grow as tall as you are. We got cowboy boots and camo pants, yeah, we're just alike, hey, ain't we, Dad? I wanna do everything you do, so I've been watching you. Back home and I went to the barn. I bowed my head and I prayed real hard. Said, Lord, please help me help my stupid self. Then this side of bedtime later that night, turning on my son Scooby-Doo nightlight. He crawled out of bed and he got down on his knees. He closed his little eyes, folded his little hands, spoke to God like he was talking to a friend. And I said, son, now where'd you learn to pray like that? He said, I've been watching you, Dad, ain't that cool? I'm your buckaroo, I wanna be like you and eat all my food and grow as tall as you are. Things and holding mama's hand, yeah, we're just alike, hey, ain't we, Dad? I wanna do everything you do, so I've been watching you. With tears in my eyes, I wrapped him in a hug, said my little bear is growing up. And he said, but when I'm big, I'll still know what to do. Cause I've been watching you, Dad, ain't that cool? I'm your buckaroo, I wanna be like you and eat all my food and grow as tall as you are. By then I'll be strong as Superman, we'll be just alike, hey, won't we, Dad? When I can do everything you do, cause I've been watching you.
This is the Hudson Valley's home for classic country favorites.
In the corner of my mind stands a jukebox. It's playing all my favorite memories. One by one they take me back to the days when you were mine. And I can't stop this jukebox in my mind. I don't need no quarters, don't need any dimes. You filled it up forever when you said goodbye. Heaven knows I love old melodies. They were meant to ease the pain. But the kind that's playing on my mind are driving me insane. In the corner of my mind stands a jukebox. It's playing all my favorite memories. One by one they take me back to the days when you were mine. And I can't stop this jukebox in my mind. Song, those melodies were meant to ease the pain, but the kind that's playing on my mind are driving me insane. In the corner of my mind stands a jukebox, and it's playing all my favorite memories. One by one they take me back to the days when you were mine, and I can't stop this jukebox in my mind. No, I can't stop this jukebox in my mind.
On 920 WGHQ.
Good morning. You're now listening to Kingston Community Radio, airing on FM 92.5 and AM 920 WGHQ, Kingston, New York. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Pamel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you and mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. And good morning. This is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in, sharing the morning with us, being a part of this morning's program. Wednesday, January 6th, 28 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston. A mix of cloud and sun today, a high up to 38. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, a low 26. Thursday, mainly sunny with a high around 40. And Thursday night, clear, low down to 21. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are Lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 30 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Scott Harrington from Hurley, and I support Kingston Community Radio because the people need a place to have their voice heard, and it's lost in corporate radio, so please keep listening and supporting our station.
Thank you for being with us on KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ, 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR's Talk Radio, 331-9255 is your number. And join us every weekday, 7 to 9 a.m. Today is Super Wednesday, and Greg Chorvas is in the on-air studio, and let's see what we have going on today. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Dan Gatis, and welcome, listeners. Good morning, 331-9255. And if you get that noise that's in the background, okay, even though our doors are closed, there's a loudmouth, a big mouth that walked in about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And it, just like the Hudson River, it never stops running. His mouth never stops running. So We'll see
I
who
don't
that
hear it
person is
yet.
when he comes
Okay,
through
yeah,
the door.
exactly,
And I know
okay.
Supervisor Fred Costello is on virtually with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys.
How are
Good
you?
morning, whoever's in the studio. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Fred.
How are y'all doing?
We're okay. We're okay. Greg's in his control space over there. his little control capsule.
Little corner.
Yeah. It's a nice little niche there. And where are you, Fred?
I'm actually relaxing. I just grabbed a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna sit in the living room and watch some TV while we're doing the show.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
Wow, that does sound relaxing.
Not too bad.
So I just had to walk away to adjust the volume there. But yes, as Dan said, several weeks ago I got put in the corner, and this is where I stay.
At least you're facing inward.
Yeah, at least I'm facing inwards.
We're all compromising to try to stay safe. And,
We have to.
It's not easy. And as I'm watching the news, obviously that's a headline again. And we're reached over 100,000 hospitalizations nationwide again, and I think the deaths were 3,700 yesterday. Those are big numbers.
Just unfortunately, there's just so many, millions and millions of people who went against science, went against all the advice, not to gather, stay home, not travel. And again, and I've said this here the last couple of weeks, there's going to be extenuating circumstances, emergency situations where people do have to travel. But the numbers were just absolutely astounding, especially now Sunday was the largest. Okay, it even surpassed the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And now, if we see any kind of a scenario like we did after Thanksgiving, I don't know where we're going to put these people, especially in some of these states, Arizona, California. There was an individual, it fell off the roof and broke both of his arms out on the West Coast. And the paramedics came and did what they could and told him they couldn't take him to the hospital and told him to go back in his house. That's scary it's scary when you get to that point.
It sure is. And, California's treating people in hallways, and it's pretty extraordinary that we ended up here. It's hard to believe.
Well, and it's, you've heard me use this word, our listeners have heard me use this word, it just boils down to stupidity. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple.
Yeah, it's tough.
And unfortunately, it just seems like in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've known more people that have tested positive than the entire time since the pandemic started.
Well, I think there's an interesting point there. The first wave of the pandemic, it was around, but it was very much in the institutions. It was in our jail system. It was in the nursing homes. It was in the hospital, and it was largely contained. So it was kind of a second-hand experience for most of us. But this wave of the pandemic, it's in our neighborhoods and many times in the house right next door or in the bedroom right next door. So this experience is defined much differently with the community spread. And, it's been a challenge.
There's our answer, Dan, that just came through. So Fred, we've had a lot of distraction here the last 10 minutes because an individual walked in, and even though our doors are closed and the setup down here, I could barely hear anything else except this individual with his big, loud mouth.
You're holding us and our listeners all in suspense.
Well, he went into the control tower now to bug Dan.
Bug Dan for a little while. I got a pretty good guess who it might be, and I'm not going to say it.
I'm pretty sure you can take a very good guess, a very valid guess, who that individual is.
Perfect. Good. So this week we have our Police Wednesday, right?
I'm sorry, what was that, Fred?
This week is our Police Wednesday show?
Yes. Yeah, we've got actually quite a lineup. And now he's coming out of the control tower. And that individual is Police Chief Joseph Sinagra. Good morning, sir, from Saugerties.
Good morning, Greg. If my voice is like flows like a river, it's the Hudson and you're the Nile.
How long? Dan, did you give that to him? He didn't think of that, did he?
He did. All by himself. Yeah, I didn't say anything.
It must be the bottom of the hour, comedy hour.
Comedy hour? No, it's not quite the bottom of the hour. But anyway, Fred, in answer to your question, yes. And we are expecting, besides Chief Sinagra, and I just got a text, another supervisor in Ulster County guessed the right answer and said, has to be Chief Sinagra.
Who's that, Bob McKenna?
Yeah.
Bob McKenna? Who's Bob McKenna?
What are you talking about?
Who's about you? Who's the supervisor? There's no Bob McKenna that's supervisor in Ulster County.
No, Bob. You're something else, Greg.
Come on. So anyway, we'll try this now for the third time.
Fictitiousville.
It's for the third time. We have Sheriff Juan Figueroa, who's going to be coming in with. He may be coming in. He may be calling in. Is Dr. Ed Lawson, who is the founder and president of the Family and Community Engagement Services, FACES. So we're going to have some interesting stuff to talk about. And at some point, I'm sure Captain Rob Appleton may pop in.
And what about Chief Berardi? Is he in this morning?
Oh, yes. Jeez.
Oh, gosh, don't forget him, Greg.
I forgot about Chief Berardi. I'm so used to him. You know, he used to be the fourth Wednesday at 8:35, and he just kind of felt lonely and
he was on the dark side on that show, so he decided to come to the more positive and upbeat show.
Yes. He moved from the dark side of the moon. So what's going on anyway?
Wait, lots going on tonight. I guess we have our organizational town board meeting, correct?
We do.
And then at the same time, unfortunately, we have our Saugerties Police Re-Envision Collaborative Committee is going to hold their first town hall. It was unfortunately was scheduled at the same time, and it was too late to change it when they realized that they had scheduled it during a time period that had a conflict. So hopefully the next two follow-up town hall meetings won't be we won't be challenging the town board, and it'll give more people an opportunity to participate. But I think we have about 60 people registered so far.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it should be pretty productive.
Now, this is the first one?
This is the first one. Starts at 6:30. If anybody's interested, if this is the first time they're hearing about it, all they have to do is go to the Saugerties Police Reform Re-Envision Collaborative Committee Facebook page, and there's a link there that you click on, and it'll send you information on how to join tonight's meeting.
So obviously it's 100% virtual.
It's virtual, correct. Yep.
Well, I could probably partake in both of them. I've done a chamber meeting and a town board meeting simultaneously.
So you're not supposed to do that. If you take a look at like Zoom etiquette, you're supposed to stay with one meeting. Yes. Did you ever take a look at it? There's 10 tips for Zoom meetings.
I never really look at Zoom tips because I'm not a big fan of Zoom, and I don't use Zoom unless the other party is initiating the virtual meeting and is using.
I use them all now. It seems like everybody's got their own platform.
I don't know. I just like. I just like the features, the enhanced features, and also the enhanced security features that WebEx brings along.
And I did Teams for the first time last week. That was pretty good too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have them all now. So what have you been up to? You've been lucky so far with the snow. You only got dumped on once, really.
Yeah, that one on Monday was more of a nuisance. And
is Fred still with us?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how you feeling, Fred?
I feel great. How you doing?
Good. When are we gonna actually see your face again?
I don't know. I was almost gonna come down this morning.
Almost.
Soon. Yeah. I miss coming to the studio.
Yeah.
It's easier to, I don't know, there's an energy that you miss out on not being part of the studio.
Yeah, like the looks on our faces. Well, actually, you can actually stream us in, and you can see those looks.
That's true.
I do have it on YouTube once in a while as well.
Right. Greg reminds me this morning of my grandson, Oliver. He's over in the corner. He's got a little trayette in front of him. He's got his coffee there. He's got one of his toys.
We have to take advantage of the room, and we have to social distance whenever we can.
Right, right.
And, obviously, I think what we're going to do is utilize that bench. When the school group people came in the last time before the vote, we did that. We just slid it over. Everybody was on camera. Everybody had a microphone. And Dan arranged things real, real well. He's in there shaking his head, yes. And it worked out real, real well. So if Dr. Lawson does show up, I know he's quite, as everybody should be, on social distancing. We'll do a little jockeying of the furniture here.
There you go. Can't beat that.
Got to do what we have to do to make things work.
Awesome. So what's going on, boss? What else we got going on today here? Anything I need to know about?
Me?
Yeah. You think I would refer to Greg Chorvas as my boss?
If you're mad at him, you might.
Only when he wants something.
Yeah. Yeah, we, like one of you mentioned, tonight's our town board organizational meeting. And that's something that only happens once a year. And we assign board liaison shifts. We state who the town attorneys will be for the coming year. We kind of memorialize what the government will look like for 2021. And there's an air of optimism, especially this year, as we kind of leave 2020 behind and move on. And it's kind of nice. And then beginning 2 weeks from now, we kind of go back to our regular schedule for town board meetings and get back to the more normal work. But these organizational meetings will be happening in every town across the county, and the county government will do one as well. And it kind of lays out a little bit of a roadmap for where we are headed for 2021 and some of the things we hope to achieve. So they're somewhat significant moment for the board. This is Peg now, who's the individual who replaced a vacancy that was created on the town board late last fall. And this is her first time going through the organizational project. So I imagine she's a little bit excited and nervous at the same time. And we're looking forward to it. It should be a good meeting. And for the first half of 2021, I somewhat envision it being very much like the second about 2020, because many of the challenges that we had to deal with in 2020 still exist. The calendar has changed, but the dynamics that are kind of haunting us have not changed. And it's very much still about trying to keep our public safe and our employees safe. And that's going to be our challenge for the near future. But I'm really proud of everybody, Greg's staff and Chief, your staff as well. Our employees have taken this thing seriously from the beginning, and we've done a very good job containing exposures when they have occurred. And we're on a good path, and we just have to see this through for the next 4 or 5 months until this vaccine gets distributed in a way that's meaningful.
Right.
And hopefully that's right around the corner.
How are we looking? How are we set on pace with the animal shelter? We're going to be able to move forward, you think?
We believe so. Our expectation is to start that project, start the physical construction of that project in the fall of 2021. We have a building designed. We have about 2/3 of the money we need to build the building, and we certainly have the excitement and motivation that will be needed to do a project of that scale. But there's a fundraising component which has not stalled, but is moving at a pace that's not as brisk as we would like.
Right.
And from the outset, we've pledged that we would insulate the residents from the capital cost of this project. So we need to get the pledges that we need to fill in that 1/3 gap. We need to get those pledges in place before we start construction so that we can keep our word to the residents. And I have all the confidence that we will. It's just been a little bit challenging to raise money when businesses are still struggling because of COVID. But I don't believe this is going to last forever. And I do think once the vaccine is distributed in a meaningful way, we will start to bounce back rather quickly.
Right. You know, it's interesting, if you talk to some individuals that lead up some charitable organizations, they really felt that coming towards the end of 2020, when they were looking for money to be able to provide for families, they thought it was going to be tight and that they might not make their same numbers that they had in years past. And surprisingly, they were able to surpass those numbers. So there's a lot of generosity out there. So hopefully we got a lot of animal lovers and those pledges will be made.
I agree. We may be surprised. It's just, there's families in need, and kind of appropriately, the organizations that have tried to help families have gotten good responses. I think Boys and Girls Club was overwhelmed by the response they had for their fundraiser, but Boys and Girls Club has really made an extraordinary response, and their impact went far beyond just their members. They were, when we did the resiliency program last spring, the local chapter in Saugerties and Diamond Mills got together, and they served thousands of meals for families who were in need for months.
Right.
And, so that was just a tremendous experience and a testament to the infrastructure that they had in place. And I was happy for them, and it was appropriate that they raised as much money as they did. So those organizations earned what they have gotten, so to speak. And we feel strongly that when we do get around to asking for the funding we need to do the animal shelter, that people will respond positively as well. And we just got our statistics from our animal shelter, the number of adoptions we did for the year. And it was pretty extraordinary because they have also been impacted, and the adoption community has been challenged as well. So we average about 300 animals per year, and that is up this year. We did 379. And we expect that number to grow when we build the new facility. And one of the ways we're confident that will grow is our shelter, along with the Ulster County SPCA and other regional shelters in our area. Many states, especially in the southern part of the country, do not have the robust spay and neuter programs that we have. And when they had the hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast, a lot of animals were displaced, and actually a lot of puppies. So we participated in it, and it was a really interesting relay where they would bring animals from the Gulf Coast to the central part of the country. They would be intercepted there by another volunteer. That volunteer would take them to the Northeast, and then our staff would meet those volunteers at relatively nearby locations and bring them to our shelter, the Ulster SPCA, and other shelters in our area that were helping. And it was pretty easy to find puppies' homes, and that was part of the reason for our increase. But if those efforts did not occur, down south, it's common that those puppies and the other animals that were displaced could have ended up in kill shelters. So that was a really noble project. I'm glad we were able to play a small part in it. And, the shelter business in our part of the country is really a network that works closely together. And there's some really great people who put a lot of time in and help facilitate a successful program to make sure animals are safe and end up in homes with good families. And sometimes families need help to make sure that they can support their pet, and those resources exist too. So it's pretty uplifting to be a part of that. And as we reinvent our infrastructure and build a new facility, which will give us the opportunity to house animals in a more appropriate way and participate in that system in a more appropriate way, I think our residents will be really proud. And it's not just a Saugerties story. Our shelter is located near Woodstock, and about half of the volunteers that help our shelter are from Woodstock. And, those folks really enjoy being part of this network, and they're a big part of why our shelter has been successful all these years, and we only expect that to expand as well.
Right.
As we get the new facility up and running. So it's going to be, that's an exciting project, Chief. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. Hey, Fred, just out of curiosity, you may or may not know the answer to the question, but how many shelters do we have actually in the county? We don't have a whole lot, is that correct?
I think shelters, there's only two. I think there's the SPCA and us.
Okay.
But there are some resources in the southern part of the county. and I'm not quite as familiar with those. But and there's been kind of a reinvestment in shelters. The Ulster County SPCA, I think their facility is over 20 years old now, and it's actually, they've reached the capacity that was designed for, and they are in need of a capital project as well at some point.
Right.
And we spent time at the Dutchess SPCA. They just did a major renovation project. I think theirs was within 5 years, and they built a tremendous facility, and they've been able to expand their network of volunteers. And then we went to the Columbia Green SPCA, and they just opened a new facility recently. And that facility and the Dutchess facility are the two facilities that in many ways inspired the design of our new facility. The original thought, for folks that are familiar with where our shelter is we wanted to move the shelter out near 212 and kind of have a retail visibility component, thinking that that would motivate people to come to the shelter more often. And then after we visited other shelters, we realized that a rural setting where there's trails near the shelter is a better experience for the animals and for the volunteers who come, because you can just walk inside, grab a dog, take it for a walk through a wooded trail. And obviously, dogs would prefer to walk on a natural base versus a hot blacktop or concrete that might have been treated with salt or something like that. So,
makes sense.
Go ahead. You got a question?
No, I said that makes sense. I said that's I guess a lesson learned by taking road trips like that.
Yeah, it's always it's always good to see what other people.
We learned so much going to the other shelters. Mohawk Hunting built a really big shelter. I think they adopt out like 10,000 animals a year, and their facility is tremendous. And they have a bottle recycling program that raises over $100,000 a year to help the operational costs of that shelter, which is just it's extraordinary. And it's all run by volunteers. And they built, their hospital had state-of-the-art veterinarian capabilities on site, on staff. We certainly couldn't justify something like that in Saugerties, but we want to increase our annual adoption rate from the current 300 plus to hopefully 500. There's an economic scale when you do 500 animals that kind of helps with the operational cost of a shelter, and that's our target goal. And for a small regional shelter, that seems to be a healthy size and a healthy target to try to operate within. And we believe confidently that demand exists. We probably could exceed that demand, but we certainly do not want to create a competitive situation with our peers. We just want to serve that niche that we've kind of found ourselves in. And, Ellie does a great job. She operates the shelter, and she has some young staff that's just dedicated to the concept and does a tremendous job. So
she's truly one of the unknown heroes of Saugerties.
Yeah.
And we meet once in a while at Ellie's house because she has the outdoor area, and we can also comfortably social distance. So when the weather was good, we would meet there, and we could have our meeting outdoors. And she had a turtle that got hit by a car that she was rehabilitating. She had a chicken that she was rehabilitating. A couple of squirrels. She's just her heart is so big for animals, and some of the animals that came to our shelter that came out of extreme situations, they would be at her house, and she would be rehabilitating them, and it's pretty, it's great. It's uplifting, and you can really understand why people get involved in that. And she's done some amazing work, and you're right, Chief. She's one of the unsung heroes doing this work. So
she's certainly very dedicated. Of course, I've known her for quite a number of years. Years ago, her husband worked for me as a mechanic, Guy, and good family, nice family. And you're right about she does at her house. I'm getting the signal from Dan.
Okay.
We're down to 1 minute. Now, I do just want to mention this. Both you gentlemen mentioned about how people, the generosity, the outpouring that continued this past year. And all of the steward shops this past holiday season raised a total in all their shops of $941,000. And then with Stewart's match, they gave back for organizations benefiting local kids, other worthwhile endeavors, $1,882,000. Almost $2 million.
Wow. Congratulations to them.
That's awesome.
In the Main Street shop, customers gave $2,480. I didn't get the number for the Stewart's across from Saugerties East, but that's just a phenomenal number. And Stewart's, as they've done for many, many years, continues to make the match and to put that kind of money back into the communities throughout their areas, and especially the kids. Almost to $2 million is quite a tremendous feat. Especially,
congratulations to Stewart's. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is very, very awesome. And also to all of our listeners who participated in WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund. I know we're over $66,000 or $67,000. I still have to bring the money box in from the ice arena, so that's going to add a little bit to it. But with that, we'll be back in a few minutes with Dr. Ed Lawson and Sheriff Juan Figueroa and Chief Joseph Sinagra.
Thank you, Greg Chorvas, Joe Sinagra, and Fred Costello calling in during the show today. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio on AM 920 and 92.5 FM. My name is Dan Gatis. It's 7:31 a.m., Wednesday, January 6th. 28 degrees outside right now, a mix of sun and clouds today, with a high up to 38 tonight. Partly cloudy skies, a low down to 26. Thursday, mainly sunny, a high around 40. And Thursday night, clear with a low down to 21. And Friday, sunny skies, a high of 38. Friday night, partly cloudy. It's a good week. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
My Shiro always goes the extra mile, stretches every dollar, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Home Energy Assistance Program can help make winter a little warmer this season, with financial grants to eligible households to help pay heating or utility bills. Are you in need of assistance or know someone who is? Find out more about the benefits and eligibility requirements of the HEAP program by contacting your County Department of Social Services or by visiting the Assistance Program section of Central Hudson's website, centralhudson.com.
You got me! The galaxy is safe once again.
Sometimes kids play with pretend guns. It's up to us to make sure they don't play with real ones. Keep yours stored locked and unloaded. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylands from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
And thank you for being with us on Kingston Community Radio. Wednesday, January 6th, 28 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. You're listening to 920 AM or 92.5 FM, or you're streaming online at mykcr.org. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley. Now let's get back to the on-air studio with Greg Chorvas and Joe Sinagra and Fred Costello. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dan Gatis, and welcome back, listeners. For those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. In the studio here with me is Saugerties Police Chief Joseph Sinagra. Fred Costello, supervisor from the town of Saugerties. Are you still on virtually, sir?
I sure am. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
And we are expecting Dr.
As he looks.
Edward Lawson. I just want to make sure I don't botch his title here. Just relax now, Chief, okay?
I like that. I can see that look on your face. And it's priceless.
Founder and president of the Family and Community Engagement Services, FACES. So he's going to be joining us virtually shortly. We are expecting Sheriff Juan Figueroa to also be joining us here very shortly. And again, I'm sure Captain Appleton may be popping in or joining us virtually, whatever he's comfortable with.
And Chief Berardi. Don't forget
Chief Berardi. I keep forgetting Chief Berardi. Geez, I hope he's not listening on the radio because he's liable to come in here with a baseball bat or a billy club and start smacking me. And being I'm in the corner, I have nowhere to go.
No. We reinvented, re-envisioned. He'll come in here with cotton balls.
Cotton balls, okay.
Chief, you are, so we should remind people, I know you did it in the first half hour.
Right.
Our Reformer Collaborative Commission is hosting their first public hearing this evening, and people can still sign up to be part of that, correct?
Right. And it's going to be a town hall meeting, and the format is they're going to be able to hear from each one of the committee members had special assignments, like one has training, per se, and they'll speak to that for about 2 minutes, and then they'll open the floor for 10 minutes of questions from anybody that's participating in the meeting. And then they'll go on to the next speaker, who may speak, about our accreditation process, and then open the floor again for 10 minutes for any comments. It's slated for 6:30, I believe, to 8:30. And anybody who's interested and would like to participate in that meeting, that town hall meeting, it is being done virtual. All you have to do is go to the Saugerties Police Reform Reinvent Collaborative Committee Facebook page. And there's you'll find a link for tonight's town hall meeting, and just click on the link. It'll ask you just a couple of questions, and then it'll provide you the information on how you can participate.
Somehow I missed that. I didn't realize that was taking place tonight. I'm glad you brought it up, because that's actually going to be more interesting than the boring organizational meeting. I love when Fred said,
thanks, Greg.
I love when the supervisor said it's our only one of the year. Well, thank God it is. I think the agenda was 15 pages long.
Yes, it's the longest agenda meeting they have.
That's all. I only have one piece of business on, so I'll do against what the Zoom tips suggest.
And you'll try to do both?
And I will partake in both, more than likely, yes.
Okay, so make sure you register. So when you get off the radio this morning, you have to register.
Well, you have to pre-register.
Pre-register, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they want to obviously try to prevent, there's been some unfortunate incidences with not just these police reinvent collaborative committee meetings, but there's been other board meetings that around the county that have had the unfortunate of Zoom bombing or whatever format they're using. So in order to prevent that from occurring, or at least mitigate somewhat from it occurring, they're asking for people to register, and then they'll be provided the link.
Good. And I believe we have Dr. Edward Lawson. No, we do not.
No, it's just you have a caller.
Oh, we have a caller. Yeah. Good morning, caller. You're on the air with Kingston Community Radio.
I'm going to say good morning to all of you, and I want to wish all of you a very happy and a healthy New Year. And
same to you.
Thank you for all you do for the people, and all the things that over the whole years that you've been on the radio there and doing what you've been doing. But I hope that everyone keeps well, and we finally get rid of this virus that is attacking so many people, and I hope people really, smarten up and do what they're told to do, with not meeting in large groups and wearing masks when they're around outside and near other people, and, and do the distancing. And I hope people will accept the vaccine, and not say that they don't want to take it.
Yes, and you hit the nail on the head. Smarten up. People do have to smarten up. You see it almost every night on nightly news. Those large crowds, New Year's Eve weekend, on the beaches out on the West Coast, down in the city, those large New Year's Eve parties, practically no one wearing masks, and the millions and millions of people that went against the advice of scientists and decided to fly.
It's awful what happened too there in Wisconsin, where the pharmacists destroyed all those the vaccine.
Right, I think it was 70 or 75 vials of vaccine that were destroyed, right?
Yes,
sabotaged.
Yeah, right. And then also some people had gotten injections and stuff like that, but the thing was already had been spoiled, so it wasn't even effective. So we just hope that, that doesn't happen again, and people, they think about others, not just themselves, And he was saying he didn't think that the vaccine was effective, and I believe that was the reason he gave, that he had destroyed it.
And people, I think the more important thing is people have to remember that getting the vaccination doesn't mean that you can't get the virus.
Yeah, right.
It's
no.
basically, it's just that you don't get it as bad as if you did not have the vaccine. And that's really an important point, and I caution that, and, by making a statement that doesn't mean now you can walk around without a mask on or believe that you're not going to contract it. So
Yeah,
we still
right,
have
no,
to carry
yeah.
out, the same protocols that we have in the past.
Yeah, no, people have to keep, like I said before, smarten up and, keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. But anyway, again, I wanted to wish all of you a very happy and healthy New Year, and I hope you all keep well and safe and continue on what you're doing. I really appreciate what you do.
Well, likewise to you, Mrs. R. A happy, healthy, safe New Year, and hopefully after we get through the next few months, it is going to be a much happier, healthier, and safe 2021.
Yes, right. So
Thank you for your call. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I got a text from our sheriff. He had an issue come up, but he's still expecting to head here.
Was it the alarm clock didn't go off on time?
I did not respond back inquiring about that. I just acknowledged that.
Usually that's my crisis.
Oh, is it?
And look at Dan's in here shaking his head, yeah.
Dan was a little late this morning. I pulled in here and...
Yeah, I usually get here at about 20 till, and I was here at quarter till. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, usually I beat you.
Usually you do, yes. Yes. I might have been a few minutes earlier.
I think you were.
There's nobody in Stewart's when I went in this morning to pick up the coffee, so I breezed in, I breezed out. I didn't
Thank
hit a
you for
train
that.
at Ulster Avenue. I probably hit more trains than anybody, it seems.
You mean you have to stop for the trains?
Stop for
You're
the
not
train.
hitting the trains.
It's a figure of speech.
I don't know, Greg. I can take everything you say literally. Anyways, Ice Arena.
What about the Ice Arena?
What's going on?
Hey, we're so far so good, and this just blew my mind. I know I had a conversation with the supervisor. We exceeded our budget revenue appropriation number. We did that a few days before the end of the year,
right?
And so we exceeded. We were shooting for $300,000. We exceeded that number. We had the funds from the reserve last year to pay the $100,000 for the bond, and overall department revenues, facility use fees took a hit. They're down approximately $16,000. But then our other revenues, that exceeded budget appropriations. So closing out the year, and of course, this is, these are our numbers that, although I've talked with Gary Newkirk, and having the Encode system software, it's easy to do. A lot of years, you'd have to wait until Gary closed the books out, and it would be February, early March. But it looks like our shortfall is going to be right around $10,000 or $11,000. In June, we're looking at $160,000. So very, very happy with that. And even though we can by law accommodate 96, we've capped it at 50, simply because it's a little bit too difficult to space the seating, the chairs, at least 6 feet apart. So. And unfortunately, there were some very annoyed people that came, did not know the process, where everybody has to pre-register and everybody has to pay in advance. And just fill some airtime here for me, Chief, because this is Dr. Ed Lawson.
Oh, okay. Dr. Lawson on the phone. Yeah, it's again, also even with the police department, we're going to end the year up in really good shape. We're going to end up with a surplus again for the 9th year in a row, which I think is tremendous, and I'm sure, Fred, that makes you happy to hear that.
5331.
Well, yeah, it makes me happy, obviously, and it's a good message to our residents.
Yeah, I mean, we try to be as frugal as we can with the with the budget while still maintaining the safety of our officers. So we've successfully done that again. And probably in a week or so, we'll have exact numbers, because I know we still have some outstanding invoices that'll be coming in, like fuel, et cetera, our end of the month expenses. And but I think we're going to be in good shape. It's going to be one of our probably right on par with some of our best years as far as surplus.
Yeah, I'm extraordinarily grateful to both of you and the rest of the town. overall, this is the theme. I know when we had department head meetings, we had serious conversations about the financial impacts of the pandemic, and we did a lot to insulate ourselves from the challenges financially that presented.
Right.
And those efforts were fruitful as we close out 2020 and we look at the revenues and how we performed for the year, and those efforts that you folks made and the rest of the town department heads made are going to be fruitful, and we should finish the year comfortably in the black. And that was not a given that would happen.
No, because, I mean, the beginning
March
of this
and
whole
April.
pandemic last year, there was a lot of cries and concerns about where we were going to be financially, by the end of the year.
I did not purchase, we did not purchase any equipment because I had told the board early on, I had mentioned it in the department head meeting, whatever shortfall in revenue, we were going to make up with surplus in expense. And now that we've seen those numbers, a new truck has been ordered, and we've done quite a bit of purchasing that we held off on. I believe now we have Dr. Edward Lawson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Fine, thank you.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Sorry about the little mix-up with the with the phone number. And Sheriff Figueroa texted, and he had an issue come up, but he's still planning on joining us. And, sir, you're the founder and president of Family and Community Engagement Services, FACES?
Yes, I founded FACES back in 2016. I'm also a professor at the State University of New York at New Paltz. So
give us some little insight and more detailed on your on these services.
Okay, so probably back in April or May of last year, in the midst of COVID, I had the pleasure of meeting Sheriff Figueroa, and we were discussing the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. My work has allowed me to do training across the country in New York City, training the New York City Department of Education employees around implicit bias awareness and mitigation tactics. We have also trained the Westchester County Department of Corrections, initial cadets and implicit bias training. We've had the pleasure of training at SUNY New Paltz, the faculty and staff, in implicit bias training. And what happens over that time, it's great to be able to provide individual-based training to folks that are actually doing in the work. But one of the other things that we noticed and saw is that there needs to be some work that's done at the organizational level. And so we devised this framework to allow law enforcement and other people in other sectors to be able to utilize this framework to help them to create a comprehensive diversity, equity, inclusion local action plan, to be able to help them engage in community engagement in a way that is more robust and substantive, validating and giving stake to everybody that's in the community. So the sheriff and I devised this framework, a symposium, and we're going to use the Ulster County Sheriff's Office as sort of our guinea pig. It will be the model by which we would share this framework with other law enforcement agencies across the county of Ulster. We were fortunate enough to receive some funding from the Verizon Foundation to support this work, and so on January 13th, from 9 to 5, we're going to be hosting this virtual symposium on the diversity, equity, inclusion framework in partnership with the sheriff and SUNY Ulster, SUNY New Paltz. We're going to have a few guests. I can share the run of the event with you if you like, but that's kind of the genesis of it, to be able to share this framework or model for doing diversity, equity, inclusion work in Ulster County. A lot of talk has been made of the governor's executive order. I think back in July, this was actually after the sheriff and I had met. Back in July of 2020, the governor of the state of New York issued an executive order requiring that all communities get together, the law enforcement officers or the chief executives in certain communities, and engage the community to reform and reinvent law enforcement, its practices, its policies, to ensure that it was better engaged with the community. And so it just so happened that we had already been developing this and perfecting this framework. And so we just thought, as opposed to, going community by community and sharing this work, that we would create this symposium where everyone would be able to log on, including the community, and understand the best practices around doing this work.
And I didn't mention, as you were coming on, in the studio here with me is Saugerties Police Chief Joseph Sinagra, and he's having his first, you're having your first town hall.
And the doctor and I met a couple of months ago. He came and presented before the Ulster County Police Chiefs Association, right, Doc?
Yes, we did. In fact, that's part of the reason why we wanted to do this symposium. You can imagine trying to get to every single law enforcement department. It's a little difficult.
Right.
This is a way for us to codify everything and allow everybody to have access to it. We will be videotaping the whole symposium, which will allow us to get to everyone and allow everyone to maybe get the content.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, the meeting you attended too, we had the chief from New York City Police Department, Terrence Monahan, was present.
I think he was, and so was the district attorney.
Correct.
From
Yep.
Ulster County.
That's correct. RDA. Correct. Yep. Yeah, one of the things that I've been with our committee that I expressed to them is, really to foster major change in law enforcement, there should be, we talk about oversight for individual law enforcement agencies, and that's good, but you're trying to teach an old dog new tricks. Really, we need to start at the academy level. And I've heard no mention in any of these committees, and I brought it up to our committee, why aren't we taking a look at the curriculum that's in the current police academy, which quite honestly is almost the same curriculum we had back in the 50s and 60s. It hasn't changed much. And I think for major change to take place, we need to take a look at how we're training our police officers, how we're training cadets to be police officers. And I think change needs to start there. And if we can make major changes there, then you're going to have a breed of law enforcement I think the community would be very happy with. Unfortunately, some of the methodologies that we employ today in law enforcement are methodologies that are over 60 years old, and they never changed. And that's part of our failure.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Not that law enforcement is failing, but certainly training and education. And so part of what we walk through in the framework is we talk about some, 21st century policing skills when we're looking at what's important. And so there are 6 pillars that we sort of rely on. Pillar 1 is building trust and legitimacy. Pillar 2 is policy and oversight. Pillar 3 is technology and social media. Pillar 4 is community policing and crime reduction. And Pillar 5 is what was just mentioned, training and education. And Pillar 6 is officer wellness and safety. And what we try to do, I think it's actually excellent what the police chief has shared, is we want to look at all of those pillars, and we want to look at our local community through, analysis of disaggregated data and analysis of our current policies and practices to find out how we're stacking up, not to be critical of law enforcement, but to say, how can we do and deliver police services to the most professional way and to the best of our ability. And I do agree that training and education is a critical piece.
Oh, pillars 4 and 5, as you mentioned, I think are obviously key components to change over the other 3. Not that the other 3 aren't important, but 4 and 5, I think, really addresses the crux of the issue. And, one of the other things that we really take a look at in the education component is really on community policing, we should be engaging the public in conversation about how do we, the police, how are we going to respond to you, and how should you be responding to the police? And I think if we had that dialogue, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about right away people want to challenge, like at a vehicle and traffic stop, the police officer. And that's really not the time to challenge what's taking place. But I don't think that the general public as a whole, I don't think they know better. because nobody ever said, hey, if you get stopped by the police, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. So I think we need to have a little bit more of that dialogue too, and I think that would help, number one, with transparency, and number two, I think it would help strengthen relationships between police and community.
I couldn't agree with you more. Just real quickly, part of the framework design is broken down into three elements. The first is assessment, the second is analysis, and the third is then action. And it bears on the concept of we can't solve problems that we don't quite understand. And so we want to really assess who we are and where we are. And so we begin with disaggregated data. We look at and do a SWOT analysis on the program's policies, practices, and procedures. And then we do what I call targeted stakeholder engagement. And I think that's to your point. We need to be able to engage stakeholders to understand needs, interests, and concerns. But we also need to, and one of the elements was social media and technology, we need to be better able to communicate with the public like you suggest. And one of the ways that you better communicate is not, like you mentioned, at the moment of the interaction at the traffic stop. Let's have those conversations in non-law enforcement kind of scenarios where we can have dialogue, where we can maybe not agree, but we can understand. That's what communication really is, effective communication. Not necessarily agreeing at every level because we don't understand each other. Once we begin to understand why and how and what we do on both sides and our interests on both sides and our interests and needs on both sides, then I think we can have more fruitful dialogue, as you suggest. But that has to happen in what I would call a targeted stakeholder engagement environment.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly with you.
One of the challenges, and I love town halls, but one of the challenges in the town halls is just think about this concept. When you come to a town hall, everyone there is an expert and wants to be right. Most times when you come into town halls, people are not wanting to resolve issues or to be reconciled. So it's difficult to manage and to facilitate conversations in that environment. So what we suggest and recommend through the framework is to have targeted conversations where you're going to specific stakeholder groups like maybe the health community or the K-12 or the institution of higher education, and you're asking them from their lens and their perspective what works best, what do they see as an issue, how are they approaching it, so that you get needs, interests, and concerns. My experience is when you do it that way, you find that we have more in common amongst each group than we have that separates us. But we don't get to hear it because we're competing to be right in that general session.
Right. I agree. And I think it also we're able to convey that some of the things that the police do, quite honestly, actually everything that we do, is driven by legislation. And I think a lot of times people say, well, why did the cops do that? Well, because the law said that's how we were supposed to do it. And I think when we sit down and we discuss that and people realize that, then we can all work together to change it. If we agree that, hey, you know what, and it's okay to disagree. But I think that when we hear both sides of the issue, and I know a number of times I've had community members approach me about certain policies we've had, and I've listened to what they had to say, and we changed the policy because, you know what, when I stepped back and took a look at it, they were right. So, but it never, I just looked at it from one side. But to hear the other side of it and what the perception and the optics are of a particular policy or the way we carry out business, it's an eye-opener. And then together, we were able to, this community member, particularly in one case, and myself, we ironed out a policy that everybody felt comfortable with and said, yep, I knew that we were reaching our objective. And as a community member, I knew that person was satisfied with, if they had to dealing with the police in that particular situation and it was dealt with as policy dictates, they were okay with that. That was good.
I like that point as well. You heard me mention during the assessment phase that we look at data. I think it's helpful in those conversations that we have with the community to be transparent. I think some of the time we believe that if we have to withhold certain information to sort of protect our space. But I think transparency, especially through data, and as you mentioned, certain policy that is sort of mandated and regulated. When you stop someone and their license is suspended, you have to. The law enforcement officer has to take certain actions. There are things that happen. But also I think what's helpful is that if the public knows this, if we're having conversations before the interaction,
Right.
that it creates a better interaction. Because people, the research suggests that if people feel and trust the procedural process, if they perceive it to be just, then it will change the way they react to it. It's when the perceptions are that they're unjust, and those perceptions could be biased. And bias works both ways. That's one of the things that we've trained on.
Right. Hey, Doc, I'm sorry, but we're at the top of the hour. Can you stay with us, and we just got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we'd love for you to stay on. As soon as we get back from break, and we have to do, in fairness to our sponsors, we have to do birthdays, which will only take a minute, and then we'll be right back with you. Thank you.
Right.
It's all yours, Dan.
Okay, and thank you, Greg Chorvas and Joe Sinagra and Fred Costello, and a very, very special thanks to Dr. Ed Lawson for being with us today. This portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. And it is now 8 o'clock a.m., Wednesday, January 6, 28 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. A mix of clouds and sun today, a high of 38 tonight, partly cloudy skies, a low down to 26. Thursday, mainly sunny with a high around 40. Thursday night, clear, low down to 21. Friday, sunny skies, a high of 38. And Friday night, partly cloudy, a low of 19. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
My Shiro always goes the extra mile, stretches every dollar, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Home Energy Assistance Program can help make winter a little warmer this season, with financial grants to eligible households to help pay heating or utility bills. Are you in need of assistance or know someone who is? Find out more about the benefits and eligibility requirements of the HEAP program by contacting your County Department of Social Services or by visiting the Assistance Programs section of Central Hudson's website, centralhudson.com.
You got me! The galaxy is safe once again.
Sometimes kids play with pretend guns. It's up to us to make sure they don't play with real ones. Keep yours stored locked and unloaded. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylance from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
The last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, locations near you. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Central Hudson. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. Wednesday, January 6, 28 degrees right now in Uptown Kingston. And our call-in number is 331-9255. Let's get back to the on-air studio with our incredible police forces that have joined with us. Welcome back, Greg.
So you're having a busy day.
Thank you, Dan Gatis, and welcome back, listeners who have been with us. Those just joining us, 331-9255. We've got a full studio here. We've got going to go left to right around the room. Sheriff Juan Figueroa, Ulster County.
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Chief Berardi from the town of Ulster.
2020's here. 2021's here, actually.
2021 is here. And Chief Joseph Sinagra from Saugerties, and Captain Rob Appleton, New York State Police. I believe Fred Costello, Supervisor Town of Saugerties, is on virtually with us. And as soon as we do birthdays, we're going to get right back to Dr. Edward Lawson. Who wants to lead off?
You go start. So I guess we're going to start talking about birthdays. So happy birthday to Donald Carriger from friends at the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Club. Happy birthday, Donald.
And next is going to be a happy 94th birthday to Betty Decker from her family. Happy birthday, Betty, and all of us here at WGHQ.
And today's winner of the famous cow pie is Betty Decker.
Happy birthday, Betty.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Betty. Happy birthday. When you get the opportunity, get down to 62 O'Neill Street, right here in Kingston, New York. Wow, that cow is lively this morning. Right here in Kingston, New York. Pick up your famous cow pie, which is courtesy of Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. And listeners, please continue to send in the birthdays. We'd love to have as many as possible each day. Easy to do. You can email to kcr921@gmail.com. You can postal mail to Kingston Community Radio, P.O. Box 4364, Kingston, New York, 12402. Again, Betty Decker, congratulations. Happy 94 years young. Enjoy your cow pie and have an awesome day. Dr. Lawson, do we still have you?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Lawson.
Good to see, good to hear everyone in the audience. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you. I forgot where I left off, but I wanted to just add a couple of things. So I mentioned some of the 6 pillars that we sort of rely on to identify best practices in law enforcement and community engagement. And when we were talking about building trust and legitimacy. And so one of the ways that you build trust and legitimacy is, for example, some law enforcement office department, they make their policies available for public review, not for them to critique them, but because we were talking earlier about just understanding how law enforcement happens. So people don't understand that there are certain requirements by law and by policy and regulation that law enforcement has to engage in. So posting policies for public review, posting stats and data on stops, arrests, summonses, and crime disaggregated by race also gives people an understanding of what's going on. Finally, we did a lot of work. We trained Philadelphia law enforcement office, but for the fact of COVID, we would be training all 6,600 law enforcement officers in the city of Philadelphia, but COVID struck. One of the things that they did, and our work with them, is they modified their oath of office and they modified their mission statement. I just want to, just to give you a sense of what it is, read to you their new mission statement. This is after we've done work and we've talked to them about these pillars. Their mission to be the model of excellence in policing by working in partnership with the community and others to fight crime and the fear of crime, including terrorism, enforce laws while safeguarding the constitutional rights of all people, provide quality service to all of our residents and visitors, and create a work environment in which we recruit, train, and develop an exceptional team of employees. Why do we focus on mission?
Couldn't remember word for word.
It helps us to, have a clear guidance for how we're going to do our work, and it also gives a sense to the public that we're serious about what we're doing and we're going to focus on it. And so, in working with the sheriff of Ulster County, we looked at the oath that we take, and the oath for New York City law enforcement is generic for everyone. And so he looked and is thinking about expanding it. He looked at his mission statement and realized that it was probably on point, and so he didn't need to alter it. But these are places and ways you can begin to build trust and legitimacy amongst in the community.
And I want to add to that. So you're right. We should all be looking at our mission statements because we have to change with the times. Just like policies or living documents. In the state police, they have a team that deals with policies 24/7 all year long up at Albany. For us in the local communities, we don't have that asset. We as leaders have to look at policies and change with the times and make sure that everything is up to speed and how we represent and work for our communities. The oath, is interesting because it is very generic. It's about the state constitution, United States Constitution. But I do believe we need to change the oath, especially in my office. We're going to do it, just to reflect what people want to hear, but not because of that, but because it's important for the officers to understand what their role is in society and how they're supposed to represent the community and the office that they work for. So those are important things. I want to backtrack just a little bit. And, I know the doctor said that we've been working on this for about 8 or 9 months, and that's true, before Executive Order 203. But the other thing that we started was the initial conversation and what I believe is the root cause of a lot of the issues that we're talking about, and that's economics. And what the doctor and I were working on was on a grant, which we didn't have enough time to apply for, and that involves fatherhood. And in the jail at the time, we did a survey, and we had 45 fathers. They had 148 kids amongst them. But think about that for a second, and how we as a society need to do better for those young individuals so they don't end up and they can break away from the issues of their parents. So that's something that at some point we're going to get back to, but there's so many things going on in law enforcement in our community with COVID, Bill 1, Bill 2, constraints of budgets. There's a lot going on, but at some point we're going to revisit that. But I say that because of the importance of economics. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white, it's economics, it's poor people. When I say 45 fathers, those are 45 fathers of all races. And I do believe that economics has a huge role in what occurs in society. And it's an issue that we all need to look at equally in order to talk about the program and the framework that the doctor's talking about.
The other thing I'd like to jump in and add too is whenever I begin training law enforcement, we go in with again data, and so we talk about the fact, and we thank law enforcement for their service and sacrifice, and we try to explain that we understand that there's probably about about 800,000 sworn officers serving in the United States, which is the highest figure ever, and about 12% of them are female. We explain that there are approximately 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the U.S. But we also explain, and see the public doesn't know this as well, that not all law enforcement officers, departments look the same. Approximately 52% of them have less than 25 sworn officers. And I'm sure we experience some of that in some of the Ulster County law enforcement departments. We also share the sacrifice and the service of 1,511 officers died in the line of duty between 2008 and 2007. One death every 58 hours, or 151 per year. There was 129 fatalities in 2017. So we constantly look at this data because there's a misperception and there's things are reported and it's not actually accurate. So we want to get to the real facts so that people understand it. Because if you again, going back to bias and perception, it's based on perception. And we all have a perspective. And it is, in fact, the case that two people can look at the same thing and walk away with different thoughts and ideas about that thing. So we want to practice this engagement on a regular basis. We want to be able to, one of the tactics that we share is in trying to build trust and legitimacy is going to the local football game, the high school football game, but go outside of uniform. Just go as a regular member of the community and cheer for the team to create that kind of bond and that kind of camaraderie in the community. Yep. The last thing I'm going to say on that point is this. Most law enforcement departments have a complaint process where people can come and complain, but very few have accommodation process. So it's almost like you're going to get what you seek. We encourage law enforcement officers to not just have a complaint process where people can come and register complaints, but also have accommodation process where people can come in and talk about the great job that law enforcement is doing. If If you don't have that process, but there are people out there that would say that, there's no place for them to do that. And so part of that technology and social media and coming-of-age conversations that we need to have include perception management process, how we can better engage the community through technology that we currently have. And I know the sheriff is active in that kind of work as well. As I'm talking, I'm thinking another thing that was mentioned at the top of the show, we were talking about training and education at the academy level. And the sheriff can share some conversation around what we're doing at that level beyond just the training and education of law enforcement. And I'd like for him to speak to some of the civilian or citizen academy work that we're doing, some of the other social sort of service-leaning programming that Ulster County Sheriff's Office is going to be planning on doing as another attempt to engage the community in a broader and more dynamic way.
So I think community interaction is extremely important. Everyone at this table here does it. Every single one of us do it. And I think I speak for myself, we don't put it out enough. We don't tell the people what we're doing enough, whether it's giving free car seats, whether it's the cadet program, which, by the way, we hired three individuals from the cadet program, and two of them are from the city of Kingston, and they scored like 90 and 95, and we are in the process of hiring. We hired one full-time, the other one is a part-timer, and that's how we start diversifying the force. But we start at a younger age, and I think I heard the chief talk about that in relations to the police academy, how we have to train officers when they first come in. I think starting at a younger age at the high school, so folks can understand what law enforcement does, because there is really a misunderstanding on what occurs. And I don't like to use the word us and them. I don't like to use the word other side. Now, we are all on the same side. We all want the same thing. And I think it's important that we look at it that way. And if there's some criticism, accept it and move on. If we can't accept some criticism on the things that we do with the lack of communication, I think we're all missing a tremendous opportunity to fix things in law enforcement. And we're lucky in this county to have the great leaders that we have in positions of authority. And we all know the history of law enforcement, the dealing with the underprivileged and people of color. We know that history. It's important to know that. But one thing we can't do is change what happened yesterday or last year or the year before. But we can change what happens today, and we can change what happens tomorrow. We can't dwell on the past. We need to look forward. We need to be optimistic, and we need to be one team, because we really are. We live in the neighborhoods. We, a lot of us have kids at the local schools. We've been here several generations, or like myself, over 40 years. I don't know where I would be if my parents wouldn't have moved us up here in the 70s. And this is a great community, and we're just all going in the same direction. Everybody wants a safe, home. Everybody wants to have their children educated in a good school, and everybody just wants public safety as well, and peace. And so that's what we're all doing. We're just doing it in different ways, and communicating is key to all of that.
You make some very, very good points, and seeing it more than a lot of, because of the interaction that I have with our local police chief, that long conversation you had with me on Sunday, the sincerity and the dedication that all you people bring to the table is remarkable. And we're very, very fortunate in Ulster County. We've talked about this time and time again. And you had mentioned you don't get enough out there of what you are doing, but none of yous, including myself, like to toot our own horn. And that sometimes, by not tooting our own horn, is detrimental.
Why is everybody pointing at the chief?
He's pointing at Greg.
Very, very well said, Greg. And I gotta agree. And obviously, we all know if we listen to this radio show, we're usually pretty good at jawing at each other once or twice throughout the show. But I agree. That's been a big part of the Town of Ulster's Reform Committee it's about selling yourself. Selling what you do, selling why you do it. And a lot of what I saw was it's a misunderstanding. The public doesn't know why we do certain things. It's not their fault, I would guess, because the fact is, unless you're involved in this field, you don't really look into the deeper issues of why we do what we do and how we do it. But it's about explaining why we're doing things, explaining why the officer brings the person out of the vehicle during a traffic stop. Just simple things like that the public generally wouldn't perceive it as. And that's been a lot of the hurdles that I've seen that my reform committee has understood, because it just taken the time to explain it to them.
I just wanted to jump in. I think one of the things that we want to encourage, and we use the framework to do this, is after we've done an assessment and we now have data and we have information about who we are as an organization and how we go about doing the things that we do, we want to move to analysis. And a part of the analysis is goal setting. And what we want to do is we want to set SMART goals, specific, specific, measurable, achievable, result-oriented, and time-bound goals. One of the things that I've noticed in some of the commission and the work that people are doing locally is they do a pretty decent job at trying to get the voice from the people. But then the next step is to create and set up measurable goals, because that is going to point and it's going to be your beacon to get you to where you want to get. If you want to be a diverse and equitable and inclusive community, then you're going to have to set goals, and you're going to then engage in evidence-based practices to achieve those goals. And so what does that look like? That looks like saying that you want to reduce the amount of stops that are based or bias-based. And so then it drives your action in order to achieve that goal. And so that's one of the things that we will be emphasizing during the symposium, is that it's great to get the conversation. We would like it to be targeted stakeholder engagement. We do want you to own your data and your narrative. Organizations, one of my favorite books is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Not again, like the sheriff said, that we're not adversarial, but, and I'm paraphrasing a particular paragraph in the book, but what he says is, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll be victorious in 1,000 battles. And I like to bring that into this dialogue to say it's very important. No journey begins without self-acknowledgement and self-awareness. And what I tell my students is the hardest exams are self-exams. We want to be able to understand who we are and how we operate. And clearly from this call, the folks on this line have that down pat. You're acknowledging staying with the times. You're acknowledging the importance of data. You're acknowledging the importance of engaging the community to give voice and to validate and to cherish every stakeholder in the community. But I think we need to take that next step of setting SMART goals and then laying out evidence-based practices. One of the things that we emphasize is not just, I call it the 4 E's. We want to engage in effective practices, but we also want to implement those practices effectively. And what that means is there needs to be a level of transparency, ownership of standards, and an accountability that we have. And so after we have effective implementation, we have to have an enabling context, which is law enforcement officers like the ones that are on this call in Ulster County, who desire it, who want to see better community police relations. And then finally, we want the final E is evaluation. We want to constantly and continually look at our policies and practices and procedures and our performance to ensure that it's the highest level. That's how we take ownership of it. That's how we sort of get to where we want to go to. One of the challenges, again, as I said, I see in some of the reform and reinvent commissions is that we're not looking at some SMART goals that drive sort of our action.
Well, there's only one thing that, Doctor, that I would caution you on, and I know you said SMART goals, and they certainly need to be that. One of the things that concerns me from time to time is that law enforcement is overall we're not a factory. We don't produce widgets. We react to things, whether it's radio calls, observations that are made out on the street. So to have concrete goals, one of the things that I get concerned with is because obviously in the state police we expect performance out of our troopers, is that when you set goals, and I'll just use performance measures, whether it's tickets, arrests, vehicle stops, impact, answering your calls, total number of calls, those kinds of things. Sometimes that can be misleading when you're asking people to do the same thing or a little bit better than the previous year. Because what ends up happening is you end up chasing the number. Sometimes then bad stops happen because they're afraid that, I got to have this number to come in order to be a good police officer, or I have to do this in order to be a good police officer. And sometimes a situation can be forced, and we certainly do not want that. So when it comes to performance measures, you have to be careful about how we're going to achieve those things and what it means to achieve those things, because in all honesty, the police officer really doesn't have a great degree of control over what performance measures or what's going to happen in our day. There's going to be some days where nothing happens, and they're out there and they're doing their work, and so therefore, okay, we paid these people good money to go do something, and nothing happened. So did we get the bang for our buck? The problem is that there's what I call unintended consequences. By that person being out on patrol, they may have stopped something that's not measurable. And that's the problem with measurables in law enforcement. There's a lot of things that there are no measurables for, that you can't quantify and provide an analysis on. So that's where the sticky part is. In the textbooks, and I'm a professor over at Marist College, and I've been teaching for 12 years, and working with stats. Stats is a very good jump-off point, but it seldom tells the entire story. And that's part of the narrative that we also need to bring in there. There's some intangibles that we, are having a hard time quantifying and relaying to the public. But that doesn't mean we should stop doing that. All I'm saying is that stats and all the things you're talking about, analysis, goal setting, the stuff that David Horsager puts out, the stuff that's in the Right Academy, there's a lot of training and experience, and all those things should be looked at and part of the solution, but it's not entirely the solution. Does that make sense, sir? Hello?
Yes, I totally agree with you. I apologize, but that's part of communication, right? So
exactly.
Let me just be clear. When I'm talking about goal setting, I'm talking about things like in building trust and legitimacy. One of the things that you might do is we might look at the mission statement. I had read a mission statement that Philadelphia created. So a goal could be to review and evaluate our current mission and to update it by a certain date. That's what I'm talking about, because I totally agree with you. Law enforcement is not like any other scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the same page as far as that's concerned. But we can set goals to say we're going to review policy, practices, and procedures, and we're going to look to ensure that we're building trust and legitimacy, that our training and education is on par, that we're going to, as the sheriff mentioned when he first got on, about looking at our policy and procedures and programs on a regular basis to ensure that we're achieving those types of goals, where we are looking at, for example, I mentioned the accommodation policy. I'll be curious to find out how many of the law enforcement departments, not even test, but just I think to find out how many of you have accommodation processes to see if someone wants to give accommodation to the police, how many of you have that process. But that's a goal, right? That could be something that we look to do, that a better communication with our community. Citizen academies, getting out information around data in a way that, I know a lot of law enforcement departments have the blotter that they put out on a daily basis. But I'm talking about more sort of communication that the public can maybe take in and understand. What they did in Oakland, where we did a lot of training, is they provided like a law memo type of document that talked about Terry stops and what it is and how it evolved and what law enforcement is allowed to do. It's the law, it's on the books, but they really put it in a way that the public, when they read it, could digest it. And those are all goals, specific, measurable, achievable, and results-oriented. I think that's the key. What are we trying to achieve? What work is... We're doing... Said, diversity, equity, inclusion.
That was Fred going off.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion SMART goals to be better, to round that out. But I totally agree with you, and I didn't mean to intimate that, law enforcement is like a construction factory where you're building a house or building a widget, as you mentioned.
No, and I agree. I was just mentioning it as a word of caution, and we have to wrap this up for our sponsors,
Go
right,
ahead.
Greg?
No, go ahead and get your comment in. And then
No. All I was saying is as a word of caution for listeners who may not know that there's a little bit more to the dynamics than what the doctor's alluding to.
Okay, so we do have to go to a break, and we will be back shortly. If you'd like to stay on, if you have anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Lawson, you're welcome to. If not, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day. And again, we've been fortunate to have this morning Dr. Edward Lawson, founder and president of Family and Community Engagement Services.
And thank you, Greg Chorvas, and all the law enforcement officers that are with us today. And a special thanks to Dr. Ed Lawson for being with us today. And you are listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, airing on FM 92.5 and AM 920, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Today is a mix of clouds and sun, a high of 38. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, a low down to 26. Thursday, mainly sunny with a high around 40. And Friday, sunny skies with a high of 38. Friday night, partly cloudy, a low down to 19. And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
As warm days slip away and the weather gets cooler, most of us will begin restarting our home heating systems. And that's when the threat of carbon monoxide poisoning is most critical. This potentially lethal hazard can occur with any furnace or boiler, so be sure to have yours professionally serviced regularly. Make sure chimneys and exhaust vents are clear, and use carbon monoxide detectors throughout your home. Central Hudson reminds you, your safety matters. The Home Energy Assistance Program can help make winter a little warmer this season, with financial grants to eligible households to help pay heating or utility bills. Are you in need of assistance or know someone who is? Find out more about the benefits and eligibility requirements of the HEAP program by contacting your County Department of Social Services or by visiting the Assistance Programs section of Central Hudson's website, centralhudson.com.
Hi, this is Dina Roy from Hurley, and I support the Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
And thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. It is now 8:33 a.m., Wednesday, January 6, 29 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. WGHQ 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. The upcoming segment of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Herzog's. the difference of buying local. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building and maintenance and painting needs. Discover the difference of buying local, and at herzogs.com, sales are ongoing. And let's get back to the on-air studio with Chief Kyle Berardi, Robert Appleton, and Juan Figueroa, and Chief Joe Sinagra, Greg Chorvas. We've got a full house, and welcome back.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Dan. And I believe Fred Costello, Town Supervisor, who has been on virtually, he is now no longer on virtually. But if you want to pop back on, obviously you're more than welcome to do so. Listeners that have been with us, thank you for joining us this morning. Those just joining us this last half hour, 331-9255. Certainly been quite a morning just listening to Dr. Lawson and the conversations here around the table. I want to jump back to something you said, Captain Appleton. You know, you had mentioned about you go out on a day and the officers do nothing. But just the sheer presence of, if there wasn't that presence, what would have happened? You know, I talk to you, Chief, all the time about it. I think I've alluded to you also, and past captains with the state police. Having a trooper car go through, we have a lot of, as you know, a lot of crap that happens at the complex. Just having, whether it be a state police vehicle, whether it be a sheriff's vehicle, going through the complex, a Saugerties police vehicle going through the process, even if nothing is happening, they don't do anything. But if it wasn't for that presence, what would be occurring and how much more crap would be taking place?
Yeah, you have to remember that the absence of crime is the efficiency of the police.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it demonstrates, and that's one of Pallian's principles. Dr. Lawson, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was, when we were talking
I just
about...
want to make one comment, though, quick.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Lawson and listeners, I just want you to be clear that I think Dr. Lawson is correct in everything that he's said so far. I don't want my comments to be perceived as that there's not something contributory to what he's talking about. He's 110% right. All I was mentioning is just, you know, a moment of caution, and there are other things that that make this whole process for all of us a little bit more complicated and is very tough. The thing that has to happen is that we have to be self-aware. We have to continuously improve and learn from some of the things that have been in the past, but like you said, not live in the past. And that's a big process. And the only way that process works is with adequate self-reflection, integrity in that self-reflection, taking ownership and accountability. But then, like you said, you do have to have some goals moving forward. And all that stuff has to be smart. But I just want to add that last thing. I just didn't want anybody to perceive that I was dismissing what he had to say.
We've got a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air with Kingston Community Radio.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Question. They talk about change and stuff, trying to change the police department. Well, change is a two-way street. The way you also have to have the people that are involved on the other side respect the police officers and work with them and do what they're told to do at the time, because there's steps they can make afterwards. And
right, but if I can just cut in real quick, in all fairness, and this is what I was going to mention to Dr. Lawson, I think the last line of our mission statement for any police agency should be that our officers and us as administrators will treat everybody with the same respect that we expect to receive from them. So that's a two-way street as well.
Right, yes, it is. And I just watched the video on that Ulster County Sheriff arrest and stuff. That officer did nothing wrong. She was resisting. You do as you told, and if you want to file charges later, you do it. And if you're driving with a expired license or a revoked license, you're not supposed to be in the car. And just because you run into a parking space, that doesn't mean that you can't be ticketed or charged or whatever. To where the problem is getting more and more to where people have no respect for the police officers at all. They figure they don't have to do what they're told, and they're going to fight, kick, and then get their way. And no, that's not law enforcement. That's, well, hey, you need to follow the instructions of the officer, and then if you felt that they was wrong, you take action afterwards. but it's a two-way street where both sides have to respect each other. And with the way that the police are being disrespected now by a lot of people, that's not right. Hey, they got a tough job as it is. We need them out there. And all the talk of defunding police and stuff and putting the social workers in certain situations, that would be interesting to see how that work out. But our officers do a great job, and like I said, that sheriff's deputy did nothing wrong. So you guys could continue talking, and I'll be listening. So thank you guys, and have a great day, everybody.
You too. Be safe now.
Thank you, George, and you have yourself an awesome day. Thanks for your call.
So, George, Happy New Year. Of course, it's an ongoing investigation, so I can't comment too much. But I'll say this. There's a lot to digest with what occurred with that, and we all have to be open-minded. And one of the things I said earlier is that it's not us and them, it's everybody together. And if we have to look at things from different angles at times, and that's the world that we're living in today. I'm an older gentleman, and I'm sure you are, George, so I understand what you're saying, and a lot of us do. But at the same side of that, we have to have an open mind, and we have to understand where other people come from as well. With that said, I'll just say that there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to go around when it comes to handling situations all the way around. And that's pretty much all I could say at this point. But I'll leave it to the other chiefs at the table.
One of the things that I'll just add real quick on that, George, some of our reputation is earned. We have some repairs to make. And part of that is the acknowledgement that police officers didn't always get it right, that we didn't always do it right, that the policies weren't always appropriate. Sometimes the tactics that were used weren't always correct or employed correctly. There's, as the sheriff was saying, there's a lot to this. But at the same time, we have to be the guiding light, so to speak. So in other words, if we're expecting respect from other people, we have to earn that. It's not just given. And then when things don't go well, we have to continue to give it anyways. I tell my police officers, and we had a detail in the city of Kingston, we have a responsibility to show people what real, true professional policing looks like, not what you see necessarily on television. I will say that, probably 95 to 98% of all the police officers are out there. They're doing the right things, and they're making the right decisions and doing it. But when that 2% or that 5% of people don't do it right, we have to own that. And we can't be surprised when someone yells at us, or if somebody who has possibly been pulled over for some racial issues in the past, we can't be upset when that person gets pulled over again thinking the same thing is happening. But how you respond to that is equally as important, by showing professionalism and demonstrating clearly what the issue is and how it's going on. And so that's part of the responsibility of law enforcement, is to be able to communicate that. But on top of that is show exactly what professional policing looks like, so they can experience that as well. And then you can start healing some of those wounds. Does that make sense?
It does. And leadership plays a huge role in this. It's huge, especially today. And I appreciate everything you just said, because it's 100% right on.
Well, and I think obviously when we're talking about that, we're talking about how we're trying to better train our officers how to react to a situation. Obviously, we got to be the professionals in the situation. I think a lot of it goes with what we've been talking about from the beginning of this, is about community interaction. Obviously, the more we get our faces out there, the more we interact with the community, the more the community understands what we're about and what we're doing. Like I said in the beginning, it's the fact of misunderstandings, a lot of it. And obviously, a lot of misunderstandings can escalate. And as we've seen it in time and time again, what really looks like a bad situation in the end, if it was just if temperament was brought down and people really thought about what was really going on, is it worth what the end result was, and what can we do to avoid that? And that's why we look at a lot of these situations. And yes, as we all don't like video, video does come in a big play when the fact is how can we do better next time? Now we can watch frame by frame of what actions were taken and what we can do better next time to make this situation not happen. So I concur exactly with you gentlemen.
And as I had to pull this down. As Dr. Lawson mentioned, too, transparency is so important. And we have to get out and engage the community. I think it's really important. I think that's something I always believed in. I know I've got teased a lot about the amount of media time I get, but that was the objective. It was to put my department out there and to tell people. I had a councilman who's no longer a councilman in our town, but every time I put a press release out, this councilman would write me an email basically chastising me for putting out a press release. Well, how is our community going to be aware of what's occurring and what actions we're taking if we don't put that out there? And I'll have people call and say, hey, please don't put me in the paper, I got arrested. No, what's good for one is good for all. And that's the other thing we have to keep in mind, is that there has to be equity to everything that we do, because if not, it takes away the legitimacy of what we're trying to achieve. So to me, it's really important. And Greg will tell you, he'll see. I think I'm not to put any other police chief in the county on the spot. And I know for Chief Berardi, it's a little impossible for him to do this. But, you've seen me 10 o'clock at night, sitting at the corner of Main and Partition Street, standing there. I walk a beat as a police chief. And to me, that's important that my community sees their chief walking the beat. Because if I ask my officers to walk the beat, I sure as heck should be doing it myself.
Can they see you out there?
Well, sometimes they can't. Depends on how high the snow piles are this time of the year.
Leave the short guy alone.
Sorry, we're just going to have some fun. But I agree with him. Being visible and amongst the community, you can't say you're part of the community and be stuck behind your desk. Can't do it. That's one of the things that I've tried to do, and has been a long-standing tradition, is push people out of the station, especially the supervisors. Worked extremely well in Kingston. Had a sergeant who was right there with everybody. Josh Taylor did a fabulous job, and earned a lot of respect in that community. That's how it has to be done. You have to be shoulder to shoulder, because as the sheriff mentioned, this only works if everybody is involved. And I'm going to tell you right now, public, you have a stake in this. You are a stakeholder. One, you're also the initiator of some of the services because you're making the calls, and you may also be the victim in some of these things. And so in order for victims to receive justice, because I tell people all the time, that's what we work for. We work for the victim.
It has to be a team effort.
Absolutely.
And Chief, again, seeing it firsthand, and not to give you a big head, you got a big head as it is, okay? You got to get out double door. But since you became chief, getting the officers to walk the beat in the business district, yourself. I hear it from business owners. I'm certainly not a shy person. You know me. I like to talk. And I'll go into businesses. I'll ask them, if I was in Montana's last week, what kind of a year did you have? How was your sales? And speak about, the community. They see that, they appreciate that, and I think that's so important. And as you alluded to, everybody has to come together, and we talk about this all the time. Success is bred as a result of a team effort, and that's the only way you get success, as a result of a team.
Well, I think like both of you guys were saying about being out there, being present, and obviously we all know town of Ulster is not a pedestrian-friendly environment. But I try the best I can to be out in the business area of the town of Ulster. But it's a two-way street as well. The community sees the sheriff or the chief or the captain out handling a call, on a traffic stop, whatever the case may be. But the men and women in law enforcement see the same thing. They see that it's a team effort. And that's how you start bringing everybody together, because it's not you sitting behind your desk giving orders to an officer that doesn't really truly know what the mission of the police department is. We all read the mission statement, and what our job entails, but what truly are we supposed to be doing? And that kind of brings everybody together, and to bring the community involved. And the fact is, it's not just getting a traffic ticket. Yes, unfortunately, the end result might be getting a ticket, but the whole purpose of that traffic stop was to make the next person's day safer, or whatever the situation might be. And it's trying to bring everybody together in this.
Lead by example.
Absolutely.
Dr. Lawson, any thoughts on the conversation thus far?
I'm loving this conversation. I'm going to just mention a name, Bob Hammond. Bob Hammond was the beat cop that worked my community, my neighborhood, when I was in the fourth grade. I'll never forget this. He did two things for me. He taught me how to box, and he put a basketball in my hand for the first time. I didn't like the boxing too much, but the basketball thing, you gentlemen don't know this, but I received an athletic scholarship, and I played Division I basketball. But it was Bob Hammond, the beat cop, who walked my community, who knew me intimately, who came to my. I almost get emotional. He came to my law school graduation because he was the one that saw me go through all the way through life. So when people hear those types of stories and understand the impact to just community. Now, I mean, it doesn't happen now. I don't know whether, what changed, but beat cops, I'm so glad to hear you guys talk about this. It just warms my heart because I know, just like a couple of the guys that I grew up with, if it wasn't for Bob Hammond, I don't think I'd be talking to you right now. And so that whole connectivity, and that was it. Well, I don't know if you can do it nowadays, but the beat cop was everywhere. We ate pizza with us. That was back when you can get a slice of pizza for 30 cents. He taught us how to play basketball. I remember because it was the first time that I left my city. I was on the team. I didn't play a second, but it was the greatest experience in my life. And that law enforcement officer, Bob Hammond, gave it to me. We had a reunion about 10 years ago. It was about 500 people just came back to the same community I grew up in to thank Bob Hammond. So, that's what I'd like to add to this. Bravo. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about community. The other thing I will add to this, and the sheriff alluded to this earlier, was that community is everyone. And so part of what we're going to do in our symposium is bring people from other sectors of our community. We're going to have the president from SUNY New Paltz. We're going to have Valerie White, who's the executive director of LISC, which is an economic development arm that they fund over $33 billion in New York City for economic and social enterprise endeavors, because we can't. So community is not just the people. Community is the hospital, is the school system, is the institutions of higher education, are the business and employers in our community. We are all in this together, and everybody, I think someone alluded to it, should work collaboratively. This is a collaborative effort. I'll just end with this. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that is what this work is all about. We want to go far. We want to be equitable. We want to be inclusive. And we can only do that if we work collaboratively together. Everyone brings something special and unique to this dynamic of this diversity, equity, inclusion work. And we need everybody to be fully participatory.
And Doctor, for the listeners that maybe just joined us, I know you mentioned this at the very first half hour you were on. The date of your symposium, the date, time?
Okay, so it's going to be a fully virtual symposium on January 13th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we understand that you can't probably stay for the whole time, but we encourage the people from the different reform and revet commissions. Maybe you can stagger it. Maybe somebody can watch the first 2 hours and somebody can watch the third hour, so that you can get the information to take back to your respective committees. But it will be virtual, and I would love if I can share a flyer and information to register for the symposium with you, so that you can maybe post it on your website or send it out to your listeners.
Yes, please do that.
Hey, Dr. Lawson, thank you very much. It's optimistic, brand new 2021, and I'm an optimistic person, and I think everybody always wants good and focus on the positive, not always the negative. It's a great way to start the year. It's a great way to work together collaboratively, and this is a profession that I love. I've been doing it all my life. I loved it so much I came back. So I love that it's a positive note for a change after dealing with 2020, and having that narrative out there for all of us is important on the positive side. So thank you, Dr. Lawson.
Yeah, I'll even add thanks for your participation, because even from academia, from the business districts. We need more leaders to step in and join the conversation. The time for sitting on the bench is long gone. We need people to get off the bench and get in the game. And the only way we can do that is by offering people a seat at the table. And if there's anything that I can do to assist you, whether it's your symposium or other efforts, at some point I've asked for your contact information up here, so I'll get that at some point, but I'd like to continue that conversation. And the other thing is I know the other chiefs, as far as Ulster County goes, I'm an outsider from this area, and I can tell you right now, having come into this area, the collaborativeness and the willingness of all agencies, regardless of the color of the uniform, have been more than willing to step up and work collaboratively. It is an incredible environment. So the opportunity for change is a huge opportunity because I think everybody believes in getting better and providing a better service for their people. And that doesn't happen everywhere else. So I'd like to see Ulster County be the model for the rest of the world. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity to do exactly that because the leadership that I've seen in the room, in the Ulster County Chiefs of Police Association room, is second to none. That's just my opinion.
And Dr. Lawson, if you could just text that to me, that flyer, I'll make sure it gets our guests tomorrow and Friday, Monday and Tuesday of next week, our host, I should say, announce it. We'll get it on the KCR website and also the Facebook page. And we'll promote this right on through up until next Wednesday.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is really inspiring. I do this work across the country, and I can tell you, I agree with the last speaker. I've not been met with as much thoughtfulness and collaboration and willingness to work together as a community and to be a part of the community. So I'm excited, and I think we did the right thing, Sheriff, by focusing on Ulster County because Ulster County, I think, really gets it and we're going to do some great work, I believe, going forward. I'd just like to just lastly add, we are constantly looking for funding opportunities. So while the executive order was an unfunded mandate, boo hiss, we want to try to find money to be able to do some of the work that we're talking about, whether it's data collection, whether it's research, whether it's equipment. So, again, I would love the opportunity to continue to talk to everyone about how we progress and do this work at a higher level.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Edward Lawson, founder and president of Family and Community Engagement Services. It's been great having you here for the last hour and a half, and we're going to have to get you on at a future show.
Thank you so much, and have a great day for the rest of your day, gentlemen.
You do likewise.
Take care, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
So I have to ask everybody here at the table, because I'm going to bring this up at the meeting later on today. Have you had an opportunity to take a look at Assembly Bill A00416? If not, I ask that you please look at it before our 10 o'clock meeting.
What
and
is it
it basically is a bill that is being proposed to allow the governor to basically locate individuals that may be a high health risk and to be able to isolate them. I don't think it's going to get much traction, but I think it's something we need to pay attention to. And I think it's going to have a major impact on how we do our jobs. And again, it comes to the optics and perception of law enforcement and community. So I just bring that to your attention so we can discuss it later today. If you take a look, there's a article in today's Freeman. Assemblyman Tague and Assemblyman Cahill, correct. Yep. So I just ask that you take a look at that. And it's something that our community members maybe need to take a look at as well.
I thought we were going to end this with an optimistic.
It is optimistic because
Joe's a realist.
I'm looking maybe Assemblyman Cahill will call me at my office later today and we can discuss it. I think if I read the article correctly, and that's why I'm going to say I don't believe it's going to get any traction. Is I don't think it's favorable on both sides of the aisle. I think there was only one Democratic Assembly person that actually sponsored it, if I'm not mistaken. So, but it's something to take a look at. We don't want to see it gain traction, obviously.
I got to read it and see what it says.
Okay, so I'm getting that signal from the control tower. We are just about out of time. Gentlemen, Sheriff Juan Figueroa, Ulster County, Chief Kyle Berardi, Town of Ulster, Saugerties Police Chief Joseph Sinagra, State Police Captain Rob Appleton, thank you very much. This was great. Thank you again to Dr. Ed Lawson. Thank you, Dan Gatis, and most importantly, thank you, listeners, and we'll be right back here next Wednesday.
Thank you, Greg Chorvas, and thank you for sharing the morning with us and participating in Kingston Community Radio, KCR AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and our live streaming on mykcr.org. This is talk radio at its best, inspired discussions of, by, and for the community. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Herzog's. Herzog's provides color samples from Benjamin Moore paints, including the eco-friendly Aura line. Color decorating consultants and expert interior designers are ready to assist you in choosing the right colors. Visit Herzog's in the Kingston Plaza. The colors and quality of paint you choose matters. Herzog's Paint and Design Center, located in the Kingston Plaza, is there for you. A mix of clouds and sun today, a high of 38. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, a low down to 26. And Thursday, mainly sunny with a high around 40. Thursday night, clear, low down to 21. Friday, sunny skies, high 38. And Friday night, partly cloudy, low of 19. Except for the cold, it's going to be a nice bit of weather for the rest of the week. And thank you for being with us, and we will be back with you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And until then, we wish you every success in growing and developing Kingston and all our neighboring communities. We now return you to Real Country Radio.
Crazy.